we talk about earning our tears all the time.
Yeah.
And so,
like as a team, you mean, or as a program?
As a program, like we want you to earn your tears, because if you earn your tears, it means you're living wholehearted.
This is Jeff Burningham. Welcome to the Extraordinary Us podcast, where we interview people you may or may not know that have extraordinary stories to tell us and things that we can learn from. Let me remind you a couple other purposes of the podcast. We need to compare ourselves less to each other and exhibit more compassion. We're living in such a divisive world with so much contention. Let's have compassion for each other. We're all fellow travelers, no matter where we're at or what we're doing in this journey. Number two, too often we operate out of a place of fear. We don't need to make decisions in fear. We can have faith for the future and believe that our future is bright. I know that that's the case. And lastly, no matter our differences, no matter if we wear blue or red, no matter if we're Republican or Democrat, no matter our religion, race, etc., we always have a lot more alike than we ever do different. Let's focus and remember that. So again, I'm excited today to have the tallest guest I have ever had in the podcast studio. I had to duck a little bit to get in. The famous Coach Mark Pope is here with me.
I'm so happy to be here. I love the podcast.
Thanks,
this idea of, we hear everywhere is just divisive. It's all we hear, especially social media. It's just everybody is kind of taking the far extremes, and this concept, in fact, the first one of these I listened to was the one where you were interviewed, and just this concept of we're all in this together is such a, it's the essence of what we believe and what we're trying to do at BYU basketball and what we think this university should represent. We got a long way to go to get there, but I think it's a voice that's just so desperately needed. So I'm grateful for you doing it. It's awesome.
Dude, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of came off the governor run, right, where I'm getting hit from every side. I saw a lot of the divisiveness up close and personal on social media. You have to deal with some of that. And I just wanted to, these are good people everywhere, whether you're Coach Pope or, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, good people with inspiring stories. And Mark, your story's inspiring, man. Let me just, I want to run around I want to run around the table and chest bump you right now.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's go.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Mark is a national champion from the University of Kentucky. He grew up in Seattle, Washington. I grew up in Spokane, or near Seattle. Yeah. He played at UW, went to Kentucky, won a national championship, was drafted into the NBA. I think played 8 or 9 years in the NBA.
Yeah, well, played, I think I played 150 games over the course of 8 years, so played might be a stretch, but got to participate on a team is more like it.
No, that's a dream come true, though, to play in the NBA, to get drafted. And then, by the way, he's a former Columbia medical student. He went to Columbia Med School and then decided, and we're going to talk about this with his beautiful wife, Leanne, and they have 4 beautiful daughters. He decided, I think I want to coach. So we're going to talk about all of this. I want to break it down. First of all, maybe most importantly, what do you think of the Jazz? I was there last night. 2 things I really love to see, but I'm just curious, this is exciting times. Jazz closed out the Grizzlies last night. We're talking the next morning. Give me your feelings. How was it to play in the NBA, and what are you thinking about this season for the Jazz and the NBA playoffs?
Well, first, the Jazz, come on, how exciting is this?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the last time they were number 1 seed. Maybe, were they ever with Carl and John?
I think maybe in the mid-'90s with Carl and John, once or twice only, yeah.
And it's so fun to see the success, and then it's so incredible to see how they're doing it, right? They just demand so much space on the floor. These guys are so unselfish. They have a great, obviously what Quinn is doing is incredible, and what the leaders on this team are doing is incredible. And you're seeing, you see Donovan go down for a month, and you have Joe Ingles running the point for most of the game, every game. Here's a guy.
And Joe Ingles looks like my high school math teacher or something, by the way. He's crafty, but he just doesn't look like he's going to ball out, does he?
So I'm going to tell you a story. So, because Joe Ingles fits right in this category, George Niang. So you look at this George Niang, and first of all, he's one of the finest human. I've got to know him a little bit. I love him deeply. So I was actually at Wake Forest coaching, was out recruiting somewhere at a tournament in the Northeast. And this George Niang was This is actually one of my worst recruiting stories ever. He was a rising senior, and it's a really competitive tournament. I'm actually sitting next to Danny Manning, who at the time was at Tulsa, I think, or maybe assistant at Kansas. I can't remember where he was, but and we're watching this kid. He's putting up ridiculous numbers.
I bet.
He can jump
Just
like
vomit.
half an inch.
Yeah.
You know, his body looks a little sloppy.
Yeah.
He's not quick. He can't,
Yeah.
you know, it's not like he looks like his lateral movement is good. He's not explosive, but he is doing everybody. He's like 30 and 20 every night. And so I'm sitting there talking to Danny. I'm like, Danny, is there any way this translates to college? And Danny's smarter than me. He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, I walked out saying, I don't think so. I don't think not only is it translated to college, but it's translated to the best team in the NBA. And Joe fits into that mold. You know, what the Jazz have done, putting this roster together and having this unbelievable mix of tremendous athleticism at some positions, and then just incredible skill 1 through 5, and it's paying dividends, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. Did Danny recruit George, by the way? Was he like
No,
throwing
Danny
you off?
walked away too.
Okay, so you
know,
both walked away.
no,
He wasn't like throwing you off.
The worst thing is my best friend in the whole world, in terms of basketball terms, is Fred Hoiberg.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Freddie's not there. I played with Freddie with the Indiana Pacers for a couple years. We've been really, really tight ever since. And so Freddie swoops in and grabs up George. Fast forward, I'm an assistant at BYU. Fred's the head coach at Iowa State. They came here and beat us down the stretch. They just ISO'd George at the top of the key and at the Bulls head post, the end of the game. So we're actually like a full circle. So we're tearing up the floor. They end up beating us down the stretch. We're tearing up the floor at the Marriott Center, putting a new floor. So we cut out a piece of the floor. We're sending it to George.
Oh, that's good, man. There you go. Full
man.
circle,
Yep,
baby.
let's go.
Yeah, 2 things I loved about being there last night, by the way. Number 1, I don't know if you saw the shot that Donovan hit at the end of the first half. He was yelling. Yeah, I was right there. He was yelling, he can't guard me. He's talking about Dylan Brooks.
Yep.
He can't guard me. And then he hit those 2 or 3 threes in a row.
Yep.
The other cool thing, I was sitting close to Ryan and D Wade.
Yep.
Donovan was talking to D Wade like during the game.
Yeah.
I love that partnership and mentorship, like game time in the game. What do you think about D Wade coming to Utah? That's pretty special and pretty cool, I think.
Well, come on. I mean, this Ryan Smith, you know, what the Millers did with the Jazz is really incredible. It just is incredible. You cannot overstate what they accomplished with the Jazz. And then, and you know, add to that list about turning the team over to Ryan, because he just is, everything he touches turns to gold, right? And he's got a real vision for what he would like the Jazz to be as an organization, and he cares so much about this state, the state of Utah. Like, he cares deeply about this state, and he wants everything here to grow. And so, talk about the coup of all coups. You know, you bring in D Wade, who is probably, with everything happening in the world over the last year or two, is probably the number 1 spokesman, veteran NBA guy.
Yeah.
You couldn't have gotten a better representative. And for D Wade to jump in here and partner with Ryan now, it just is. It's not just the Jazz. This is the state of Utah. It's what the Jazz represents for the state of Utah, and what this means to the state of Utah, and the direction it's going is just so inspiring, and feel like we're in good hands, don't you?
Amen. I do. Yeah, I'm excited about Ryan and the whole Smith family. I know Ryan wanted D Wade to be all in on Utah, and I think he is, and that's exciting for all of us. So, more importantly, in pivoting, what's it like to be the dad to 4 girls? I mean, 4 girls, no boys, Mark. Are you surprised? Like, tell me about, I have 3 boys and a girl. My girl, I love her to death, and she's also a handful. A little more complicated than the boys, a little more high maintenance, high touch. What's it like being the dad? I know your daughters are awesome, but you know, tell us about being a dad to 4 girls. That's awesome.
So when Leanne and I found out we were pregnant with our first, you know, obviously I think every couple that's in you know, that's having a baby, you think about it all the time. And I was like, I know exactly what to do with a boy. Like, I was like, I got this. And when we found out that Ella was a girl, I was just like, I have no idea what to do with a girl. None. I have no idea what to do. And And then we got down the path a little bit, and I'm like, I have no idea what to do with the boy, right? But these girls, I kid you not, I am the most blessed man in the world. We actually were having our fourth child, Shay, and at one point the doctors thought, they had done an ultrasound, and they thought it was going to be a boy, and I was so heartbroken. I was just like, man, I don't want to mess up the juice. We have such a magical juice in our family that comes from our girls, and they're tough and they're fiery and they're confident, they're funny, and they're smart, and they do two things. They spoil me like crazy, and they put me in my place all the time. Like sometimes I'll get home from work, like I'll get home after game. Good, right, for a coach. Let's say it's a Saturday game, and so I roll back in the house at 1:00 in the morning. Sometimes I'll walk in and all 5 girls, Leanne and the 4 girls, be sitting at the table talking about all the things I did wrong in the game. I walk in and they just crush me, and
they're like, "Come sit down."
I'm telling you, like these. I think a dad having daughters, I don't know if there's anything in the world quite like it, and I've been blessed with this magnificent Leanne, who is my soulmate forever, and these 4 girls that, and the thing is that I learned really quickly as they were just babies and infants that it was like the greatest time in my life, and then it's got better and better and better. And now awesome. Them as teenagers, like it is I kid you not, it's so fantastic. Like I love every second of it, and I love the drama, and I love the growth, and I love the tears, and they're just, man, I've been super blessed. So I do think I'm the most fortunate human being in the world.
Yeah, I love that. I feel the same way. I come from a family of 5 boys. To get a daughter, we adopted a daughter at the end. We had 2 boys, Sally and I, first 2 boys. When our daughter was delivered, the first thing Sally says, "Is it really a girl?" And I'm like, "It's a girl." And we're like crying and just like, so it is the greatest to have. I feel grateful to have one. And Mark, the reason we could talk basketball, that I'm a basketball junkie. So are you. You're a podcast junkie. Yep. So am I. Yep. There are so many things we could talk about. But the reason I really want to have you on, your attitude is infectious. Your positivity can, in my opinion and in my experience, can move mountains. That's what helped in my life, a lot of it. Talk to me about your personality, your attitude, your perspective, your positivity. I mean, this is what, when we first met, I don't know, many years ago, and when we spoke after you were hired as a BYU head coach, I love to talk about the guys. I love to talk about wins and losses, strategy, whatever. But what I really love, Mark, is your personality, your positivity, your outlook on life. Where does that come from? Have you always been this way? Is that developed through experience? Help our listeners understand how to have this positive attitude, which, by the way, I think leads to winning. It doesn't matter if you're a software developer, a basketball coach, an entrepreneur, in government, whatever it is. This leads to winning. Yep.
I don't. It's hard to know where to start because. I'm a huge believer, right? We could take a million different cuts. One of the mantras of me for my whole life, I actually heard when I was in high school from a teacher that I just love so much, and he's talking about having 10s in your life, right? If you've had a 10, then you're going to spend your whole life chasing the next one. If you haven't, then you can't stop until you get one. Just these moments, just little brief moments in time that are so magical and defining. He said this all the time. He said, "Hey, when you think about big dreams, he's like, I'd rather shoot for the stars and miss than shoot for manure and land right on it." And he didn't exactly say it exactly like that, but I think that's true.
That was the gist. Yeah.
I think this, I spent so much of my life terrified of failing, and that was something that made you work so hard, and over time, and it made me too. My fear of failing made me work really hard, which was a positive, but it made me actually not declare. Not actually vocalize what I was chasing and where I was going. You kind of tried to do it under wraps. And I just think that as we've grown, you understand that we're not afraid of failing. We hate failing, no doubt. We hate it like crazy, but we also understand that failing is part of the process, that the most successful people I know, the biggest winners, the people that inspire the most people, the failure is actually inherently required in the story.
Yes.
And so I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, and this idea of jumping into the arena. Like, I don't want to spend any of my life not in the arena. I don't want to be sitting in the cheap seats. And if you're in the arena, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to fail, that means you have this incredible opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And so with the failure comes that massive opportunity. And the great thing that I always think about, I mean, I'm rambling on because I could talk about this for hours, but we've been given these incredible lives, right? That we have a chance. It's kind of like, I feel like my tenure at BYU. Who is blessed enough with the opportunity, whether it's for one day or for years on end, to coach at an institution like BYU, to get to do this? And it's not guaranteed. It's going to come to an end. At some point, the fans and Tom and Brian would be like, man, we're done with this cat. Like, I can't stand his voice.
I hope
for
that's
one
how it is,
more
Mark.
day.
I hope you don't decide to leave us. But keep going.
But you have just a short window, right?
Yeah.
And that short window might be the hardest time in your life.
Yeah.
I was at the University of Washington, and I put everything as a player, and I put everything I had into that program, and I was fighting for my hometown team at the time, and I had a coach that I loved desperately, and it was just, I wasn't good enough. I couldn't get good enough to make us win, and it ended in an absolute failure. Coach got fired. I couldn't win enough for him. The team kind of fell to pieces, and it was just awful. It was 2 years of tears and devastation and failure and frustration.
2 years for you?
2 years.
Yeah.
And it was brutal.
Yeah.
And couldn't get over the hump. It was actually the hardest basketball experience of my life. And but I also grew so much. And I think I failed so much in my life that I've actually I haven't become numb to it. I hate it like crazy, but I'm not scared of it anymore because
you realize you can bounce back.
Yeah,
right?
Those failures. I mean, I failed miserably at Washington, and because of those failures, I got to win a national championship in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right. And so this idea also of this idea of failure is it's not a failure. I'm not a failure unless I let that be the last chapter. Amen. Like, did I fail at Washington? 100% I failed at Washington. But that's not the end of my story. Did I fail getting fired 7 times in the NBA? Sure, I got fired 7 times. I got fired more times than any player ever in the NBA. But that's not the end of my story, right? That's just a part of it. And so, I think that this idea of just being so grateful that we get to take big swings and then finding a way to be devastated by failure but not terrified of it. I think it lends to this idea of and then this idea of wanting to be just,
it's the real quick. It's the growth mindset, right?
Yes.
It's having the growth mindset of, instead of appearing perfect to others, whether that's a perfect basketball player or a perfect person, you're okay with your vulnerabilities and your mistakes hanging out there, so that you can fall down and then get better, right? This is what you want your players to learn.
Yes.
The best shooters, and I'm not talking about around the basket, but the best 3-point shooters in college, in the NBA, in high school, they miss more than half their shots. So you're gonna fail often. But it's about the ability to learn from those failures and to bounce back and be better, right? And this is what you want your players to exhibit.
You think about, take it on a most rudimentary level. You're sitting in class and the teacher asks a question, whether it's in church or school or anywhere. Yeah. And you kind of sit there and I'm nervous to raise my hand. Like, I was always terrified to raise my hand. I was scared to raise my hand because I didn't want to, I like the idea, but what if nobody else liked the idea? What if the answer was wrong? And so what happens is your growth gets muted.
Yeah.
And if there's a time in our lives where we can just have the courage to jump into the arena, that's my biggest thing. Just get in the arena, raise your hand, and answer the question. Because if you do, you get a chance to grow. And if you don't, then you're just stuck on the sidelines. And the courage to do that's really important. You think about our community. Sometimes I think our community is tough because we have this ridiculous expectation that we're supposed to not make mistakes and not mess up. And that just is a cancer. Like, if you live in an environment of shame that is trying to discourage you from either owning your mistakes or from hiding from failure, that is a growth stunting place to be. Like,
amen.
I mean,
Totally
your
agree.
life is your life is such an incredible example to me. The fact that you put yourself out there in front of the whole world and made this massive run to try and become the governor of the state of Utah, right? And it didn't turn out the way you did. But what a bummer if you just said, man, I'm not going to risk a legacy or risk my name or risk the chance of losing, right? But you jumped out there, and I guarantee you could talk to me for 10 hours about how that made you, it just changed you as a human being and made you better and grow, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we got to do. We got to jump in and try. And so when you can start to see life that way, you start to get excited about it, and it becomes way more fun. Ryan Smith just did an interview with Tom Brady that I thought was so powerful. You know, here's the greatest quarterback to ever live, the greatest football player to ever live on the planet.
Yeah, the greatest winner ever.
It's hard for anyone to argue that. Yeah. And Tom Brady's talking about fear, which we all have so much fear. Don't tell me that you're not afraid. Like, we're all afraid. Everybody's afraid. It's one of the things we talk about our athletes with is that don't, athletes want to, pretend like man, cool, I got it, I'm cool. Yeah. You're terrified. And so,
oh, dude, I've had more fist bumps already in this podcast than maybe like fist bumps in any other podcast. I love it. Keep going. Keep preaching. Preach, Pope. Preach.
Hear Tom Brady talk about there's no place for fear in athletics in competition. He's not saying he's not afraid. He's saying like fear you just can't let it live there. Tell me, Timberwolves, Celtics, great power. Kevin Garnett. So Kevin Garnett in his book recently talked about fear. He talked about fear right in the book. And so he's like, fear's always there. But he's like, what I realized was sometimes I was letting fear drive the car. So you know the way Kevin talks, it's so beautiful, his book. He's like, I'm like, listen, chump, you get in the back seat. I'm driving this car. And so fear's there, but he's not letting it drive the car. That's where we got to get, man.
Amen. Like, too often, I think we let, and this is the purpose of the podcast, which I love, but we let mistakes in the past cloud our judgment. We let fear of failure in the future hinder our decisions. Like, we stay safe, we stay content, we don't push it. And I think that stunts our growth. Like you said, we can't let mistakes of the past hinder our decisions now, and we can't look to the future, an unknown future, by the way. If COVID has taught us anything, it's like none of us know what in the world is going to happen the next day.
That's right.
And so why do we try to pretend that we know and then make decisions based on fear? Let's not make decisions based on fear.
It's and that idea, like, I think about this all the time. You know, I had this experience. I was playing for the Denver Nuggets. It was my last job.
Was this with George Karl?
Yeah, with George Karl. I had already been accepted to medical school. You know, we were done. Like, I was never a good player. I was always a bad player, but I had become an awful player because I was so old and my body was done. And so
whatever.
We got fired the last time, and I was cool with it. Like, I was like, okay, you know, I wanted to make the team one last time, but I was like, in fact, when George told me, I'm like, I shook his hand, gave him a big hug. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so I left the arena. And the Pepsi Center, I think they changed the name, but it used to be the Pepsi Center.
Yeah.
It was like my home. I lived there. My family lived there. They were there all the time. We had the run of the joint. Like, we were players there, and it was a deal. So what I did is I left, and I'm like, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to go home. I'm going to get the girls, and one last time we're going to come back to the arena, and we're going to pack up together and kind of have closure together. So I went home, got the girls, came back. They wouldn't let me back in.
No.
This joint that had been mine. Like, I was a bad player. I wasn't Carmelo Anthony, but this joint that had, like, I walked by and everyone was like, hey, coach. Hey, coach. Hey, Mark.
You know, what's up?
And it'd been, you know, I could walk anywhere in that whole building. I couldn't get back in. And they were like, we're so sorry, but.
Seriously?
And that was such a great teaching moment for me. And this
look how you put a positive spin on everything. It's unbelievable. Keep going.
No, but it was such a gift, because when you start to see your life as like, listen, I only get to do this for so long.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know when the end's gonna be. So I'm gonna try and spend as few days as I can sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste a day, because it doesn't last.
Yeah.
And so, win or lose, succeed or fail, I just want to chase the experience. That's what I want my guys to feel like. We're going to lose some games. It happens. It's sports. It's what happens. But man, I want them to have their whole heart and soul out there on the court, because that's when they have that's when they're guaranteed to actually reap rewards from it and learn. And so I love it, man. I'm super passionate about it.
No, that's awesome. How did it feel to win a national championship? That's an experience that very few people will have. You spoke about the ups and downs and how there are just some days that are like, how does it feel to be a national champion? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, we talk about earning our tears all the time.
Yeah.
And so,
like as a team, you mean, or as a program?
As a program, like we want you to earn your tears, because if you earn your tears, it means you're living wholehearted.
I love
and
it.
So, and tears are awful.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story. So I had a beautiful experience coaching Brandon Averett. I had recruited him to UVU, and then I was there with him as a redshirt, and then I left and he stayed and played, and then he jumped in the portal last year and he got to come to our place, and he had taken a long and winding path. He had started committing to Stephen F. Austin, and then his coach left, and so he followed him to Oklahoma State. His coach left again, and so then he came to UVU. Hard. His coach left again, and so finally he ends up at BYU, the last place in the world he ever imagined he would play.
Yeah.
But he had fought and fought and fought his entire life, and he had a historic season for us last year on a great team. And after we lost to UCLA, he was broken, devastated, sobbing, and it was awful, and there was no way to console him. And in the moment, it was the worst thing ever. But in his lifetime, those tears, man, they're a beautiful thing, because his whole heart and soul and all the fight he could muster had been laid out on the floor for years. And he for the rest of his life, he's going to be so incredibly proud of what he accomplished. And that's it. So
I totally feel it. Keep going.
You asked me about a national championship, and that's where I want to go, because it's really, now listen, it was it was such an incredible experience. It was such a victorious moment, but the takeaway of losing to UCLA and winning the national championship on our life, on how it changes our life, if you put your whole heart into it, is actually exactly the same.
Yeah, I love
now,
that.
I'm trying to win a national championship. Don't get me wrong.
We want to win. Oh, we all want to win.
But it's more about put your whole heart out there. That's what matters.
I totally agree. Hey guys, it's Jeff. Thank you so much for listening to the Extraordinary Us podcast. There's a lot of momentum behind the podcast right now, and we are so excited. I've got a special guest with me for a second here, my wife, Sally.
Hello, good to be here.
Why are you here, Sal?
We're starting a new podcast together, which I am super excited about. It is called Under Our Bed.
And we are literally people under our bed recording
We are
right now.
sitting right under our bed.
And if you want to hear more about why we called it Under Our Bed, tune in to our first episode, wherever you get your podcasts, because we're going to explain what it means. We hope to have candid and meaningful conversations together about issues that are relevant to you today.
Absolutely.
Good night, Sal.
Good night.
Let me tell a quick story that I've never told publicly, but when I was running for governor, put my heart out there, put my whole life out there, my family out there, put millions of dollars into this campaign, raised millions of dollars from family and friends. Everything was out there. I'd left businesses to do this. Anyways, the point was my whole heart was out there. COVID hits. I remember being right above us, Mark, here in my home office that we just walked through. About midnight, one night, a week after COVID, I realized, for a non-political name like myself, this campaign was over. Now, I didn't act like that as I continued to run for the next month, but it was over. The only two possibilities to be our next governor were former Governor Jon Huntsman, who had run for president, and then our current lieutenant governor, who's now our governor, Spencer Cox, because they had the political name ID. Yep. And I realized, this is over for me. The point is, I wept on my couch for just in silence alone for a half an hour. Anyways, the point is, there's something cleansing about those tears, though. Something refining, something that builds character in you that cannot be built in any other way. When you put your whole heart and soul out there, you go for it, and then you lose.
Yeah.
And then how do you react? In fact, one of the reasons I ran for governor, I feel like I have young kids as well. I feel like they feel like we're on a winning streak. Everything's just up and to the right. Everything's easy for dad. Everything's easy for us. We keep winning. I told friends and maybe you before I ran, one of the reasons I'm running, I know I'm an underdog, it'd be good to see. It would be good for my kids to see Dad lose and to see how I react and how I get back up. Because life isn't all a straight line for any of us. Whether you're struggling, no matter where you're struggling, no matter the success you've had, it's not a straight line for any of us. We've all got to struggle. We all have to have grit, build that character. I love that.
So I can't remember the actress, Goldie Hawn's daughter, I think.
Yeah, I'm not good at pop culture.
I heard her say one time that perfection is so boring. Now, listen, I got to say that in the right frame of mind, but I subscribe to that so much. You know, we all love stories and we love movies. When's the last time you went and watched a movie where everything always went right the whole time from beginning to end, and you left like,
that's
wow,
not the hero's journey,
story.
man.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
the
hero gets up. The hero gets knocked down and gets back up.
It's the trial and failure and your own mistakes. I mean, I've failed and made so many mistakes. And you know, you talk, you know, just to double down on this, earning your tears. I've also been in locker rooms where the season came to an abrupt end and there was no tears.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like a relief, right? There was almost a feeling of.
But that's actually when you feel like you failed.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, win or lose, we didn't actually earn the right to be totally like uncontrollably devastated. We held back something, right? Or we gave up on the fight a little bit too early or whatever. Those are the seasons I feel like are a failure, right? It's not the ones where you come up short and you're absolutely you're in the fetal position in your bed for the next 3 days because you're so devastated. That's actually a win to me. Yeah. So this idea of earning your tears I think is really important.
Okay, I want to talk one more question about tears and then move on because, you know, just as I shared kind of my sad COVID story, everyone has a sad COVID story, whether you're getting married or graduating or finishing school or whatever, you know, lost a job, whatever the case may be, COVID was devastating. It was devastating to my governor run. But talk about the Cougs. Like, your team was special, in my opinion. You had Jake Toulson on the outside draining threes. You had Yoli, which was a man-child down below, just dunking on people and athletic. You had TJ, the experienced point, like distributing the ball, as well as surrounding players. You guys were ranked like 15th in the country. 15th, 16th in the country. You were going to go in as a very high seed for BYU, whatever, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And all of a sudden, in fact, Mark, I was there courtside last game of the year against St. Mary's, the WCC championship. It was devastating. We lost a heartbreaker, should have won that game. Let's not talk about that. But to end with that sour taste and to not have a chance to go compete, to just tell us a little, give us some insight for Cougar fans and or for fans of sports all around the country. What was it like to work all year and then have your season kind of taken away from you or end?
Yeah,
that's harsh.
Man,
it hurts.
It still hurts. I was actually with Jake and TJ. We were doing Father and Sons camp with actually Jake, TJ, Zach, Dalt. I saw Yoli yesterday. So just in the last couple of days, I've seen all those guys. Taylor Mon was there. It is. I don't know yet. I mean, we're a full year and a couple months removed, and I still don't know. I don't know how to make sense of it. I don't know what's going to ease the pain. I'm not sure. That was devastation on an epic level. You talk about earning your tears, man. It was the worst locker room I've ever been in. We were all together actually going over film, getting ready for practice when the news came across the wire, and we sat in that room and cried and had no words.
I bet you were in shock, right?
I'm supposed to have the words to console my guys. I had nothing, and I still don't. There are some things that we know, though. So one of our mantras that you've already brought up is, how do you respond? This game is always asking you how you respond. So our guys have responded beautifully to that devastation. There's no doubt. Our program did, and those players have. So I do know that for a fact. I do know that our guys have been really keen on focusing on what they were able to accomplish together, right? So I know those two things. But in terms of making sense about it or making it not hurt so bad, I have no answers yet. I have no answers.
And they may never come, or they may come in a long time. I mean, it was hard, and our heart goes out to everyone who struggled with COVID. There's no doubt that this has realigned our world, changed things for the good and some for the bad. It's been an interesting year for all of us, but we're coming out of it, baby. The sun is shining. It's an exciting time. Another one of your mantras, Mark, again, positivity and the best locker room in America. I think you spoke a lot about that last year. And I want to talk a little bit about that best locker room in America. And this might be a little bit of a hard question, but I want your thoughts versus the transfer portal. The transfer portal is changing basketball, I think. Yep. I don't want to overstate it, but tell me, like, it's changing collegiate basketball. And you've had some guys attrit out, some guys come in. I don't know. How do you balance like a stable, quote unquote, family or team? Yeah. Like that's all the best locker room in America with the turnover that's going to happen in the transfer portal.
Yeah,
that's a challenge.
It's super complicated. You know, this idea of chasing the best locker room in America is something that's super important to us. It should be something that whenever you take over an organization, I think you want to look at what are the inherent potential strengths or advantages you have over every other program in the country. And certainly at BYU, one of the things that we thought really early on was like, hey, we have a built-in opportunity because our filters are so extensive about actually getting into BYU that we should turn that, what some people might think is a challenge, into an advantage. And we believe that there's some room in there to have this, to chase the best locker room in America. Now, like everything worthwhile in life, that is an everyday struggle. Yeah. It is something that you talk about and reevaluate and recommit to and fall short of every single day. Just like anything that you do great at, that's what we have to do with this. And so it is a complicated, heart-rending, every day trying to convince yourself to sacrifice your own agenda for the team. Like you have to make that commitment, renew it every day. What's hard for our guys is they make this commitment to sacrifice what they think is their own agenda for the team. They finish a game, they get blasted by everybody in their inner circle about, the cliche. You got to score more if you're going to be an NBA lottery pick, or you got to do this more, you got to get more time, or you got to
get up more shots.
Because the people that love us, they're not concerned about it. They're concerned about you as an individual.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is it's all misdirected because what this game is asking is how well do you function on a team?
Yeah.
What the media and fans and everybody else cares about is who's going to be the stat leader. Yeah. But actually, these guys' best road to having a chance to go play at the next level is not that. It's to be who can function at the highest level on a team. And so that's something we talk about every day. We ask our guys to recommit to every day, that our guys actually believe. They also believe in this concept. It's a gospel principle that
by the way, real quick, that is great advice for parents, right?
Oh,
most people have kids that are, including yourself, kids that are playing sports. And what Mark just said right there is great advice for parents and fans all around the world. Keep going.
Parents and families and friends more often than not destroy their loved one. They destroy the player that they're cheering for. They destroy him because this game, I'm going to say it 100 times, this game is not about who scores the most points. It's who's the best player in helping their team win. Those are actually guys that move on. Now, we get tricked all the time. But, it's interesting. 2 years ago, you look at the draft. Actually, I'm sorry, last year's draft. You look at the draft, and there were two incredibly high-profile players that were putting up massive numbers in BCS league, in Power 5 conferences. Massive numbers, like 30 plus. If you look back, you remember. Neither of those guys got a sniff in the draft. 100%, everybody that was in their inner circle was like, you're going to be a lottery pick. You're scoring more points than anybody in the country. You're going to be a top 13. You're going to be a guy who couldn't get a sniff. When we chase that, guys, we're wrong. We're just wrong. And not only that, but you sacrifice the opportunity to really forge an incredible relationship for a season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons with guys that you'll never forget. It is a falsehood. It's a cancer. Yeah. And it's why so many athletes finish their career feeling unfulfilled not achieving the success they want, is because they get distracted. I can't say it enough.
Yeah. Well, how do you balance the like who comes in, who comes out, best locker room in America. Like, how do you make strategic decisions in that regard? It's not easy. This has got to be one of the hardest, recruiting super hard.
Yep.
I remember when Coach Rose was recruiting Jabari Parker.
Yep.
Do you remember when he was the biggest thing ever? Or you were there, Mark?
Yes.
Remember?
I basically live in the south side of Chicago.
That's right. You
Coach was like, I don't want to see your face again. Go get this done.
And do you remember this? Either you or Coach called me and said, hey, Jeff, can you meet us at the Village tomorrow? Like, Jabari wants to come check out the nicest apartment at BYU complex. Jabari didn't even show. You remember? Like, that is so hard to, and I'm not trying to down Jabari right now. I'm sure he's a great kid, but these kids are given such accolades at such a young age. Recruiting is tough, but also balancing the decisions, because then you bring them into your family. You have to decide who you let go, who you bring in. I know a lot of Cougar fans and just basketball fans in general, speak in as much as you can about your BYU strategy in the transfer portal, or how you make decisions.
Well, it's changing minute by minute. Like, it really is. We've had massive changes over the last 2 months in the transfer portal and in transfer rules. Not just the big changes, but also sitting on the big changes and waiting for them to happen and kind of speculating about what they be. Right now, for good or for bad, I mean, we could have a 3-hour conversation on that.
Yes,
but right now, with the initial first-time transfer waiver, it's changed the game forever. And then there's still secondary, second-time waivers. There's still grad transfer waivers. And so we're figuring out in real time is what we're trying to do. I think what we're looking for right now with our guys is we're looking for a 100% commitment towards the best locker room in America, towards sacrificing everything you can for your team, towards making winning the number one focus for a year. And then we'll reevaluate. And we'll see, because of the rules now.
Is that how it's going to have to be now?
Well,
kind of 1 year at a time?
And because of the rules. And also guys change too. Like, I had a couple guys on my team that are the biggest, most self-sacrificing guys on this team that were focused 100% on winning, 100% on the greatest young men you'd ever meet. And they did it at an epic level, like something that every mom and dad and Cougar fan and coach would be so incredibly proud of. And then when they had a chance to reevaluate, they're like, I love it, but actually I want something different right now. And that's a good thing. It is a good thing. It's not only a good thing for individuals to have the opportunity to actually change what's most important to them as they grow through their life, but it's also healthy for our locker room.
Yeah. And you don't want to hold people back, right? You want your players to reach their best potential in every regard and whatever they can do.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And so this kind of regeneration and rebirth and regrowth, I don't know if it's good. Ask me in 2 years, because all these rules have changed so much. But that's kind of where we are right now, is we're saying, hey, we want you to put your head in the sand and be fully committed to this experience and this team for a year. And then listen, we're going to all have open, supportive conversations, because at the end of the day, what I want most for my guys, by far, this is about these boys. I want them to be able to go chase what they want.
Yeah.
And it's okay for what they want to change.
Yeah.
100%.
Whether that's in basketball or entrepreneurship or whatever the case may be, right? The truth is that most of these guys will not play basketball after college. A vast majority of them won't. And so, this is great preparation for whatever they will become, to become, fathers and husbands and entrepreneurs and public servants, whatever the case, doctors, whatever the case may be. Yep. That's the kind of culture you're building, and you're a great leader and mentor to do that. Let me ask, we're basketball junkies, so let me ask one more basketball question. Then I want to pivot back to personal and wrap it up.
Yep.
The future of basketball. Basketball is changing, right? Going back to the Jazz, what I see, and you're a coach, I'm not, although I'm a fan and have played a lot of basketball. Mm-hmm. It's about the 3-point. It's about getting the best early 3-point shot you can, or it's about a shot at the basket, a lay-in, a dunk, whatever the case may be. One of the things I think the Jazz, Quinn sped it up a little bit this year, right? He got the ball out, he got it, he hits Clarkson or Joe Ingles or whoever on the wing. Boyan, they get a quick 3-up, a good shot, and then they try to crash the boards, right? Or they try to run in transition and get a dunk from Rudy, whatever the case may be. So, and it's just data, right? You look at the data, and every shot around the 3-point line is worth what I think is like 1.3 points, 1.4 points. Every shot at the basket's worth 1.7 or whatever. And then every other 2-point shot, by the way, and I'm kind of trying to explain why basketball is changing. Every other 2-point shot that is not within a couple feet of the basket is worth like 0.8 points or whatever, right? So talk to me about the future of basketball, how you're incorporating that into your program, what your thoughts are at BYU in regards to this. And by the way, if you disagree, I'm an amateur, right? But
well, listen, I love the analytics of the game, so you probably lose all your listeners right now, but I'll talk about this real quick. So if you think about it just in a general sense, if you shoot 50% from 2, that's 1 point per possession, 50% from the field from 2-point. If you shoot 33% from 3, that's worth 1 point per possession. So right now in the league, you got a lot of guys that are shooting 40 percentage points. That's a 1.2 points per possession, right? For every shot, it's a huge advantage. It's just a huge advantage over shooting 2s. So what happens is that there's 2 major factors that are impacting the changes in the game right now. One is skill level. Like if you watch Damian Lillard
oh my
night before
goodness.
last.
The biggest shot, one of the best shot makers we have ever seen, like clutch.
But over and over and over again.
And incredible, I've shot a lot of threes in my life, as you know. Coach.
Yes.
Incredibly difficult threes to hit. Like these aren't like stand and shoot threes.
Yes. And so the skill level is going up. The skill level is just, it continues to get better and better and better. And also the rules change, right? And so those 2 things in harmony are actually fostering this growth in the game. Now, when you think about the 3-point line, and the Jazz have taken great effect of this, it's not just the efficiency of shooting threes that affects it. It's also the space that now you demand on the floor that has an impact on the efficiency of every shot. And that also translates into offensive rebounding. The more space you have on the floor, the higher percentage offensive rebound. So it's like a triple down effect on the value of threes.
Got it.
And so it's where the game's going now.
You space the 3 so that Donovan has room. By the way, Donovan's not that tall. I mean, really, probably he's 6'1" or something. Anyway, 6'2". You space the floor so that Donovan can slash to the basket with space and make a shot. You space the floor so that Rudy's down there alone, one-on-one, and can get an offensive rebound over a shorter guy or whatever. I'm kind of breaking it down for those that keep going.
And you look at Jordan Clarkson, and you look at Joe Ingles. It's interesting if you watch the Jazz now. Without getting too technical, on the weak side, you're always trying to close space. But the thing is, right now with obviously with Donovan and Jordan and
Boyan and
point guard
Conley
is shooting the ball so well down the stretch right now.
Yeah.
George Niang is shooting the ball. So what you do is you have these guys that are able to get downhill and make plays. And if you're on the weak side, you could be 45 feet away from Joe Ingles. But the passes that Donovan is throwing, and we haven't talked about, Boyanovich. We haven't talked. I mean, my gosh, it's an incredible roster in terms of their skill.
Yeah, they
right?
built it well. Yeah.
But if you're weak side, normally you're trying to get all the way kind of the DA line, all the way to the middle of the lane. If you're there, they skip past. The ball's out of Joe Ingles' hands. Like their passing is so accurate, and it's halfway up his carry, and the ball's out of his hands so fast. And so when you see the end of these games where Rudy Gobert is getting dunk after dunk, you're like, why aren't they helping? They're not helping because you can't.
You can't help.
If you get all the way into the lane, first of all, Rudy is so mobile and so athletic, you have to give a full body tag. Yeah. It's impossible to give a full body tag and be there on a shot with the way the Jazz pass the ball and the way they get it out of their hands and the way they space the floor. It's a real predicament. You're going to have to come up with a really creative, innovative, kind of out of the box way to guard this team. It's going to have to be some type of pressure exerted at some point where they can't actually get where they want to go. So far, they've showed that they're skilled enough to not let you do that. So you watch the game, and the game is changing and growing all the time,
Yep.
and it makes it so fun.
It's dynamic,
right?
man.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great challenge every day. I mean, love him or hate him, I love him because I'm a short point. Steph Curry.
Oh, come on.
Changed the game,
Yeah.
Mark. Like, I love Steph Curry, again, being a short point guard myself, but just he changed the game. Like, he's the one one of the ones who started this spacing being so dynamic outside. It was really those Warriors with Clay and of course, KD and Draymond. I mean, unbelievable change. And the pass is so critical on the shot. People don't understand that. Like, as a shooter myself, like, if you get a good pass, it's going up and it's going in. If the pass is low or bouncing or you got to bend over and get in your, like, it's about the good, clean pass.
Yeah, and we're actually taking clips for our guys every day. So as part of our workouts right now, just because it's fun, it's the playoffs, and these players are so expert. Like, those are the things we're pointing out. We're actually starting every workout right now by doing dummy passing drills.
I love it.
Because that's part of, like, last year our team, we had to play a little different. We had to, just because our skill set and our youth was at a different place. And the guys were real functional. They found a way to be a top 20 offense in the country again. It's incredible, right? But, like, where we want to get to is actually where we are capable of delivering passes on time in the right place and actually finding windows for passing lanes. I kid you not, watching Mike Conley right now, with the windows he finds to complete passes as a smaller point guard. It's something we're trying to adopt and learn and see from, because that's a massive part about why this Jazz team is so good, is they are such elite passers.
And why your teams have been so good, Mark. You have had a prolific start at BYU. Like, I mean, the first 2 seasons have been and AB's coming back, Alex Barcelos.
Wow.
How was that, recruiting him back?
It's so fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was your career 3-point percentage, by the way, shooting percentage? Mark, I want to know.
I think I'm still the 3rd leading 3-point shooter in the history of Kentucky basketball in terms of percentage. I only shot a couple a game, but I have 43.5%.
No
I didn't
way.
know that.
So you can stroke it.
No, I could never shoot. I got lucky a lot. I kid you not, I got lucky a lot, and nobody guarded me.
Were you like 2 for 5 or whatever?
Me.
I mean, how many threes did you?
No, I think I averaged 2 a game.
Oh, sorry.
But,
you were bombing.
I had no function, but that's what we did. We all shot threes. Coach had a rule that I think is so important in this game of basketball. And
is this Pitino?
Yeah, Coach Pitino. And so his deal was, he's like, if you turn down an open shot, you will never play. Like, you turn down an open shot, you're going to come sit down by me and it's over. And his thinking was threefold, actually. One, shooting the ball is way too complicated for me to be thinking, what does the coach think about this shot? What is the time and score? What is the whatever? It's too hard. Yeah. And so you want to take away, just like working on your shot, you want to limit the variables in your shot, and those mental variables are real. And so he made it really simple. If you have an open shot, you have to take it. It helps with accountability. It helps with pressure. It's like, your guys on the team are feeling like, man, he's missed 3 in a row. Why is he taking the 4th one? It's like, it's not on you as a player. It's on the coach, is the one who said, hey, everyone knows we all take open shots, and you start having players on the team yell at each other to take the shot. And the way that affects guys' confidence is staggering, right? Yeah. So it's a huge point of emphasis. And then the second thing is that it just makes the game itself really simple. Guys start working really hard to earn open shots, because that, like, the flip side is that, hey, we're not taking contested shots. Like, we're not doing that. That's not a part of our game anymore. And so it's got a double down impact on efficiency, something we really believe in. It was a gift to me as a player that, was not a hyper confident player. Like, I was always questioning myself, and Coach gave me an incredible gift by allowing us to know that from his stand, and he would enforce it too. Yeah. It's like we had no choice.
Again, dropping knowledge to, like, junior coaches, to high school and bantam AAU coaches. Like, that is key. I totally agree. Players
I'm going to tell you the other thing it did. Let me tell you the other thing it did. I had a great player, Andre. Losing his last name. But Andre was this incredibly athletic 6'10" center, like wildly athletic. I mean, he got off the floor.
Not Andre Drummond, obviously.
No, like nobody I've never seen. He went and played overseas for a long time. And so one of the other things was, you have a lot, and he was a little bit thinner big, and he couldn't shoot. And so the other thing it does is, in a really beautiful way, this rule is like, all of a sudden your bigs are spending a lot more time by the basket, because if the ball gets swung to them and they're wide open, they have to shoot it. They don't want to shoot 2 air balls in a row, right? They don't want that pressure. It's like, I'm not hanging out here anymore. I'm going to actually go get where I can score. It actually had that impact too. It was really positive.
Oh, that's a good point. Like, get Rudy down at the basket because he doesn't want to catch it at the 3-point line and not know what to do with it. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, like I said, unbelievable start, Coach, for the first 2 years. Cougar Nation, I'm sure, could not be more excited. I personally believe, because of who you are, that the sky is the limit. I'm not trying to put more pressure. I know you put the most pressure on yourself than anyone. The sky is the limit for BYU basketball in the coming years, and I could not be more bullish about it. I just want to say that. But, again, what's more important to me about you than being the coach is just you as the person, Mark Pope the person. So let me end with a personal question or two, and we'll wrap this baby up. I think it's been fun.
Yeah, come on. It's awesome.
On.
We know each other way too well.
Yeah. Relationships versus results, Coach. This is something that I have thought a lot about as a type A guy who really wants to win. This translates to business. This translates to families. This translates to teams, to basketball, whatever sport. Like balancing relationships with the results that you want to see. And another way I know you're a relentless person. You spoke about getting home at 1 a.m. I know somewhat of the hours that you put in dedicated to your craft, which I admire. This relentless, as you grow a little bit older, and we're similar age, getting a little more experienced, how do you balance this relentlessness with being content, Mark? Come on. So give me some thoughts about relationships versus results, relentlessness versus being content. These are things that, as a mid-40-year-old guy who's had some success and pushed it pretty hard up until this point, I've been thinking a lot about. Do you think about these things?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, listen, the baseline for us is this has got to be about these players. If this job, the particular job that I'm in, when it becomes about anything else other players, which it does all the time, there's pulls in every direction, every minute of the day for it to be about something other than these players. And every single time you go there, you end up feeling like it's really hollow. So and Leanne is so incredibly great about that, about smacking me upside the head and saying, hey, it's got to be about these players. It has to be about these players. Stop stressing about that. This is about these players, right?
That's awesome.
Now, that part is way more dynamic because as human beings, we're complicated, okay? I'll give you an example. So when I was, so the relationships, sometimes a relationship, actually the best thing you can do for a player is actually if the relationship goes bad. Here's an example. So
let him go or whatever.
I was a player for the Indiana Pacers for 2 years. I was at my 3rd year of training camp, and Coach Bird had been so incredibly generous to me, and I loved him so much. He was my hero growing up, one of the greatest players ever. He was an unbelievable counselor for me. We spent a lot of time one-on-one late after practice because he just wouldn't go home, and I couldn't go home. He would fire me, and so we played a ton of shooting games together, and he just was. It was mad. Every moment was magic for me because he was a hero of mine. Yeah. So after my 2nd year, we're at training camp the 3rd year, and Coach calls me in the office and he fired me. And he said to me at the time, he said, it's a long story.
You say this so harshly. He fired you.
He did. I mean, I'm proud of it. Like, some people say I got released, but why? You got fired. Like, own it.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of it. Yeah. Like, it's part of my story, right? Yeah. I'm super proud of it. So he called me in. We were really, we're friends. Like, he's a mentor to me. And so he said, Mark, I got to let you go. He's like, this is the best thing for you, right? You need a reset in your career. And at the time, that was the only thing he said that made me mad. I'm like, whatever. That might make you feel better, but that's not doing anything for me right now. I wasn't mad at him. I was just so devastated. I cried. I had to get out of there. I can't cry in front of Larry Bird. I can't do it. So, tears started your eyes. I just stood up and shook his hand and kind of mumbled, thanks, Coach, and I raced out the room. Yeah. So then I ended up, that season I played in the CBA, like it was the former version of the G League, for half a season, which was its own story. And then I finished the season playing overseas for a team. And then I came back the next year, went to Summer League, went to training camp, and made the team with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I ended up starting. It was the only time in my NBA career I was a real player. I was still a marginal player, but I had a real role on a team. I started most of the games that season on a great team. And we actually played against Indiana, beat them, and And it wasn't until, a whole year had passed and then we're halfway through the next year that I was like, man, coach said that, and coach hated cutting players. It was like the thing he hated most about coaching, right? And what he said was true. As mad as I was at him, I wasn't mad. I was devastated. I felt like I had failed, right?
Yep.
But as irritating as that comment was for me, later on, I'm like, he gave me a huge gift, because he could have kept me on the roster and I could have sat there and done nothing, and it would have been the last year of my career and I wouldn't have had to kind of face the music and reach out for a new challenge and try and figure it out. And so sometimes relationships being a priority actually is really hard.
Yeah.
Right?
And you have to make hard decisions,
and
right? You got to help people to change.
Now on the flip side, one of my heroes in life is Scott O'Neil, CEO of the 76ers, and his book just came out. I'm actually so excited to get into it. But he came and spoke at our coaches clinic 2 years ago, and he talked about if you want to win, you have to be willing to make ruthless decisions. So you're always searching for the balance, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not winning, you're not serving anybody well.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I think this relationship versus results thing is super complicated, and it is a artistic balance where you just have to kind of know your guys and they have to know you, and you gotta trust that whatever way, it's not always roses helping guys get to their best place, right? Sometimes it's really difficult.
Yeah, it's a good point. And this applies to all things in life, right?
Yes.
Often, too, I also think that really the result we want at the end of the day is that relationship,
Yes.
right, Mark?
Yes.
But you love Larry because although you went through a hard thing where he cut you, fired you, you love him because he saw ahead and it was the best thing for you. So sometimes you make the hard decision in the short term that hurts the relationship or you're bummed out, but in the long term, it's the best thing to kind of happen, right?
Well, and even more, to take it to another level, it's not really relationships that should be my end goal. My end goal should be these young men growing as much as they possibly can. And for me to salvage my relationship and to do that, I have to shortchange their growth. That's a trade-off I'm not willing to make, because I would much rather have a player be a little bit unsatisfied with me, but have the best chance for them to grow as a human being. Ultimately, their growth is more important than my relationship. And sometimes in the complications of life, you actually have to make that trade-off. It's almost like I got to take the hit as a coach so they can really grow as a human being. And that's what you do. You know this very well. Those are the hard things you have to do as a leader.
It is. It's gut-wrenching. It's heartbreaking. If I said, who's Mark Pope? 3 words. Give me 3 words to describe Mark Pope. Would relentless be in there?
I would be. Well, one phrase would be Leanne's husband. I mean,
Okay, Leanne's
that's my greatest pride and
I
joy.
get it. Relentless would be in there, though, or
2
no?
would be a dad.
Yeah.
And then 3 would be some grouping of. 3 would probably be a son of God, really. I mean, that would probably be it. And then 4 would be something in this genre we're talking about being relentlessly in the arena, for sure.
Yeah, like the character traits I'm saying, like relentless. And also energy. You have brought energy to the program. You brought energy to everything you've done in life, to this podcast room. Mark, I'm so grateful you're a friend, and I'm grateful you're at BYU. Thanks for coming on today, man.
So grateful for you, man. I like I said, I love this. I love the fact that we all get to just talk about ideas and share with each other. I'm super grateful for you trying to bring people together, because we need that desperately in this world. And your podcast, it matters. There's more people than we know that are sitting down just on their morning run or whatever, just trying to connect. And I think this is a beautiful medium to do it. So we're super grateful for you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Come on now, Coach Mark Pope. What a guy, so bullish on his future and on BYU basketball's future. And I am a basketball junkie. Still love playing, and played quite seriously growing up. But regardless of the basketball, I hope that you loved a lot of what he had to say about life. My favorite part of the podcast was his mantra about earning your tears. man, the team has done that. Any team sport, you do that. When you bleed and sweat together, whether it's a startup, whether it's, on a team, you earn your tears. And again, there is something purifying and refining in those tears when you lose. And we all lose. I remember and loved how he said that perfection is so boring. No one is perfect. Let's quit pretending. We all have ups and downs. It doesn't mean we need to dwell on the negative. It doesn't mean we need to post our worst days and our worst things. Look, those can be personal. We can work through those with our loved ones and friends. But no one is perfect. Perfection is boring. We earn our tears as we sweat and bleed for something that we love. And as we succeed, we cry for joy. When we fail, we cry in misery and pain, but we will rise again. Mark is a great example of that. I hope you felt his energy. I cannot wait to see what he does next. I hope you're inspired by this episode. If so, share it with a friend. Leave a rating and review. Subscribe, of course. We love you here at the Extraordinary Us podcast, and we love our guests, including Coach Mark Pope. Thanks, man. It was so fun. See you next week, y'all.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Extraordinary Us podcast with Jeff Burningham. Please help us grow by leaving a rating and review and subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Also, tell your friends and share on social media. See you again next week.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Jeff.
And Sal.
I'm here with my wife. Why? Because we're starting a podcast together.
Yes, we are.
And it's called
Under Our Bed.
Why is it called that, Sally?
Because we are sitting under our bed right now. In this podcast studio.
Yes. And we're going to be talking about things that are interesting, vulnerable, relevant,
funny.
So check it out. Funny if you're on. So check it out wherever you get your podcast, wherever you listen to The Extraordinary Us. Look for Under Our Bed with Jeff and Sal.
Check it out.
Good night.
Good night.